I'm in a block of 5-year-old Honeycrisp apples. This location is where we have a CATS trial that has gone on. What we did in this trial was looked at 5 gallons per acre applied 3 times through the drip irrigation. So 5 gallons was applied sometime around full bloom, then again about 2 weeks later, and then finished up with another 5 2 weeks after that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to see if we can measure an increase in calcium in the apple core and flesh itself. And that'll give us a good idea of how efficient we were of getting calcium into these trees. Now, we've been using calcium on apple trees and cherry trees actually for probably close to 25 years. And we don't have a lot of data that really goes along with it, but what we find is that growers really are interested in calcium. If there's one thing they know, they need to put as much calcium into the fruit as they can. So that includes maybe CATS through the water, that includes foliar sprays of chelated calciums or calcium chlorides or other calcium products on the market. They almost spare no expense when it comes to getting calcium into that fruit, because calcium is the storage nutrient. It's no different than if we were talking about blueberries or raspberries or onions or potatoes. Fruit in general needs calcium to strengthen cell walls within the fruit. And if you have a strong cell wall, then they're going to store better, handle better, ship better, have less internal disease problems. And in the case of apples, especially these Honeycrisp, bitter pit, which is a low calcium problem within the flesh. One of the first trials that I ever did on apples in the mid-1990s was on a variety of apple called Brayburns. They were kind of the Honeycrisp of their days, and that the Honeycrisp are really susceptible to bitter pit, so are Brayburns. And when I got the research material, what was interesting is I got it kind of late, and I was able to get 5 gallons of CATS onto the acre on Brayburns through the microjet sprinklers. I put it on in late July, waited a couple of weeks, put the second 5 gallons on the first part of August. That's really kind of too late to put calcium down, but since it was so late getting the product, I thought I'd give it a try. And what was interesting, and we put it on, and this microjet is spraying the tree, spraying in between the trees, and plus the cover crop. And I'm thinking, this is never going to work. We're just not able to place that calcium well enough. Well, when we harvested the trial, much to my amazement, the check area, when we picked it, had 6% bitter pit in it. You could see it by the black flecks on the flesh, which means that the tissue underneath was decaying and dying because of a lack of calcium to keep that cell wall pressure up. Where we treated with the CATS, we actually reduced the bitter pit from 6% to 2.4%. And like I said, I was stunned to see how well that worked out. So because of that data, the CATS pretty much got going on the tree fruit, apples, cherries, anything else, pears, where they know they need calcium. It just kind of became part of the program. We've never had a lot of data other than that to show its worth. So I think this Honeycrisp trial is going to give us some really good data, and something that we can tell the grower that, hey, it looks like our timings are right, and this is what we need to do. So it'll be good to get this data. Now, in general, the apple growers will use put on a CATS application through the irrigation system at full bloom or a little earlier, wait a couple of weeks, put another application on, normally around 10 gallons per acre per application, and then they'll call it good. Some of the growers that have been using CATS for over 20 years, they'll go with a mid-season application too, which maybe just 5-6 gallons about late July, just to make sure they get some additional calcium on, because you have to understand that calcium is taken up by apple trees, onions, potatoes, it doesn't matter. From the soil, it's taken up through the root system. And then from the root system, that calcium is distributed to the root, shoots, and fruit. So that's how calcium gets in. Now, we can foliar apply calcium just like we would on this tree, for instance, and we can foliar spray, and we'll hit that apple right there. Well, that apple can take up calcium, but it only takes it up on the surface. It won't get deep into the cell of the plant. So foliar works okay. You can foliar feed the leaves, and you can get into these leaves like right here, and that calcium will get into the leaf, but it won't translocate from this leaf to the fruit, because to get from the leaf to the fruit, you have to go through the phloem tissue. Calcium will not translocate through the phloem, only through the xylem or the water conducting tissue. So that's how you get calcium in the plant, either spraying the fruit directly or putting it on and having it taken up through the root system. Now, one of the advantages of cats is not only are you bathing that root system in soluble calcium so that we can concentrate it, get it up into the tree and into that apple, but it's attached to a thiosulfate. The value of that thiosulfate is that in the soil, that thiosulfate has to oxidize. And in the process of oxidation, if you've got free lime in the soil, you will solubilize that calcium, and that calcium then becomes available to be taken up by the root system in the tree. So for instance, if I'm putting 10 gallons of cats onto the acre, that's 6 pounds of soluble calcium. That gets right into the root system and right into the distributed throughout the tree in the root, shoots, and fruit. The oxidation of the thiosulfate at 10 gallons to the acre of cats will solubilize enough calcium carbonate to add another 6, maybe 7 pounds of soluble calcium that's also available to be taken up by that tree. And it doesn't take all season to get that done. It'll actually get that done in about a 2-week period of time. So the combination of the calcium, thiosulfate, is kind of the best of both worlds and can give you more calcium into that tree than what you're literally putting on. The other thing about timing of calcium needs to go on early. If you think about it, we're putting it on in prior to full bloom or at full bloom. Then again, when that fruitlet starts to form, which is about 1 millimeter in size, very, very tiny. And it makes sense. A millimeter size fruit has all the cells it needs to give you an apple this big around. So what we want to do is jam as much calcium into that tiny piece of fruit that we can get, so that when the fruit starts to expand in size, we've got the calcium in the cells internally into that plant, into that fruit. And then all of the other foliar sprays that we're going to do in season end up being just additional calcium to help build that level up. So the key is the concentration of calcium in the fruit. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but these Honeycrisp are notorious for bitter pit problems. They need probably more calcium than any other apple variety out there. All the apple varieties need calcium. It's just some varieties need more than others, and Honeycrisp tends to be on that level of needing a lot of calcium. Now, the cats is just a part of this program. We have a good chance of increasing the calcium in the fruit, which we're going to find out in this particular trial and get an exact measurement. So what we'll do is when we get that data, and we'll measure the amount of calcium that we find in these fruitlet formation, or in these apples, when it's time to take those core measurements. We'll probably wait another month or so. We'll make sure that we get that data to you in this video. So until then, we'll sign off. Thank you.